Greetings, everyone. I am Mohammad Tawakkoli, the inaugural director of the Elahe Omidyar Mir-Djalali Institute of Iranian Studies at the University of Toronto. And it's an honor to have Dr. Elahe Omidyar Mir-Djalali joining us today. I welcome you all to another session of our weekly Elahe Omidyar Mir-Djalali lecture series. At the outset, I like to express our collective gratitude to Canada's Indigenous people and acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto and the Institute of Iranian Studies operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of Credit River. Today, this meeting place continues to be the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to learn and teach on their ancestral homeland. It is a pleasure to host Masoumeh Hashemi, who is speaking today on controlled digital censorship and totalitarianism, the state monopolization of video on-demand platforms in Iran, a topic related to the ongoing women's movement in Iran. Masoumeh is an emerging scholar of cinema working on Cold War motion picture propaganda, media literacy, and film pedagogy. She is the co-author of Tehran's Universal Studio, which was published in the January-February 2020 issue of New Left Review. She's currently working as a researcher with the Black Screen Office. Please join me to welcome Masoumeh Hashemi to the Elahe Omidyar Mir-Djalali Institute of Iranian Studies at the University of Toronto. Masoumeh, please start.
Hello, everyone. First, I want to say that I am very honored to be presenting my research here and to thank Dr. Tawakkoli, everyone, but specifically Dr. Tawakkoli for making this happen, and that I'm grateful for everyone's time. So thank you for showing up. I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can all see the PowerPoint I've prepared. Okay, so share screen. Okay, so this is a work in progress that will come out in the form of an article. So I appreciate your comments and feedback. However, what I genuinely hope for is that the topic of this research soon enough in this framework will be irrelevant, as bloodless as possible. I present my findings in answering 4 questions, and if we get the time, 5 questions that are asked around the Islamic regime in Iran's digital sovereignty and SATRA, the Iranian Audiovisual Media Regulatory Authority. Let's look at this topic through the widest lens and get on the same page using some basic words which are at the core of this research. Video distribution via the internet is a technological medium based on the use of internet protocol technologies to distribute or stream video. Okay, the keywords we have here are internet, protocol, and technology. Now let's narrow down and zoom in a little bit. We'll go forward with the first 2 questions to get more familiar with these words in here's particular context. First, I asked, among different types of online video distribution, what is a VOD platform? Video on demand is a form of technology for delivering digital audio content, such as films, TV series, and shows, directly to customers who can be a singular individual or a limited number of individuals for immediate viewing. Here, there's a centralized server where the content is stored in the form of compressed digital files, and customers can make selections by navigating a programming menu, either free of charge or for a charge. The server immediately begins streaming the program. The viewer has full control over the pace and other display settings features. For example, you can pause, fast forward, rewind, or stop and later resume the program. One quick note is to have the VOD streaming distinguished from live streaming. in the VODs, the content accessed from libraries of previously recorded and stored files, like I said before, while in streaming, the content in live streaming, the content is accessed and consumed in real time. Although most of what I say, what we are going to hear here, goes the same can be applied for live streaming as well, but our focus is the VODs. Now, we get a bit more technical to see how this technology grew into a leading market. In the 1990s and early 20s, and with the wave of kill the gatekeeper rhetoric, and with advancement in technologies such as high-speed networks, image and data compression algorithms, digital forms of storage, optical and magnetic to use the tech vocabulary, came to the forefront of the multimedia era. These improvements made the VOD services more cost-effective, so more rational to invest in. These new players were born to compete with existing broadcast cable services, video stores, and other traditional ways of video distribution. For the VODs to become more competent, while features like enlarging the servers and maximizing the number of simultaneous viewers have been major maneuvering points, most of the existing work on scheduling in VOD servers has mainly concentrated on maximizing the steady state throughput. Now we ask the second question. What is one successful example of the VODs? How was it introduced to the market and how did it grow? To name some VOD examples, we can think of YouTube, Disney+, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and more niche platforms such as Movie and Criterion Channel. You are all perhaps thinking about Netflix right now, the largest subscription video on demand service. Okay, let's have a parenthesis here. All the examples that I named here are SVODs, subscription video on demand, except for YouTube, which is AVOD, acronym for advertising-based VOD. And we're talking about VODs in general. I give a brief history of Netflix so we get a general idea how a private company turns into a leading global VOD and what key factors have been at play. With Reed Hastings' 2.5 million cash investment and Mark Randolph's collaboration, they launched Netflix.com as the first DVD rental and sales website in 1998 with 30 employees, and their initial collection started with the rights to only 925 titles. From a parental model, they introduced a monthly subscription concept, which gave a boost to their customers' population. However, the company didn't turn profitable sooner than 2003. In fact, the founders almost gave up on it in early 20s because Netflix, like many other startups, was strongly impacted by losses following the dot-com bubble. And dot-com bubble is a period of massive growth in the use and adoption of the internet between 1995, and it peaked in March 2000, but it crashed drastically by October 2002. Back then, Netflix founders offered to sell the company to Blockbuster LLC for $50 million, an offer which was perceived as a joke and turned down by the CEO. The company went public on May 2022, selling 5.5 million shares of common stock at $15 USD per share. In January 2007, the company launched a streaming media service introducing video on demand via the internet. However, at that time, it only had 1,000 films available for streaming compared to 70,000 available on DVD. The following month, Netflix delivered its billionth DVD and announced that they will be more focused on the digital aspect and online VOD service from then forward. Now, as of September 2022, Netflix had 222 million subscribers worldwide. We can see the breakdown. And it also had an operating profit of 5.5 billion in 2021 and 85% increase year on year. In 2016, at the Consumer Electronics Show, which was held between January 6th to 9th. And it is one of the biggest trade fairs of its kind. And major brands, technology brands, they show off their latest innovations. There, in his promotional speech, Hastings said, quote, "I am delighted to announce that while we have been here on a stage at CES, we switched Netflix on in Azerbaijan, in Vietnam, in India. We can see the name of the countries. And in 130 new countries. Today, right now, you are witnessing the birth of a global network, TV network," end of quote. As he went further, he clarified what he meant by global. Everywhere, that is, except China, quote, "where we hope to also be in the future," end of quote, North Korea, Syria, and Crimea. The latter three being countries where Netflix could not legally do business because of US trade sanctions. Okay, the very interesting point here is there is no mention of Iran. He specifies the countries under US sanctions, but he doesn't name Iran. So one can say that Netflix didn't ban Iran. And this leads us to ask the third question. How is Netflix doing in the Middle East and North Africa and in Iran in particular? Netflix started operating in West Asia in 2016, where by estimation, 85 to 90% of the population watch TV, while only 25 to 30% use online streaming services. In MENA, there are local platforms such as OSN Group's VAVA, OSN, like acronym for Orbit Showtime Network, a multinational premium entertainment content company headquartered in Dubai. And there's also NBC, a Saudi conglomerate, which moved its headquarters from Dubai to Riyadh this year. Initially, they were based in London, then they moved to Dubai, and this year to Riyadh. NBC produces original content as well as streaming international titles to improve its streaming services, such as Shahid and Shahid Plus. For Netflix to compete with such players and to expand in the MENA, producing original and local content seems to be a current strategy. This year, Netflix's first Arabic-speaking original, a remake of the Italian feature Perfect Strangers, was released on January 20th, and days after its release, the film hit the top of the most watched list in Egypt, Lebanon, and other countries in the region. So I quote a synopsis from Washington Post. A gay man comes out after years of hiding. A father has a phone call with his teenage daughter about her first sexual encounter, and an unhappy wife searches for satisfaction in sexting with strangers. All of this is unraveled at a dinner party. I just mentioned the synopsis so you can recognize the global trends. So, not surprisingly, it caused tensions. Its themes and depictions of sexuality and cursing sparked a wave of controversies and intrigue, especially in Egypt, where public outrage and calls from conservative leaders to ban the film were mounted. But let's go back to Netflix in Iran, where the sanctions aren't the only barrier. Copyright, if not to say unexisting, is applied in the most complicated and selective way. I don't go through that. It's a whole vortex for itself. So like many other countries in the region, in Iran, Hollywood pirated films are being copied and circulated for decades. The same year that Hastings gave the speech at the CES, Netflix announced that it would begin VPN blocking since they can be used to watch videos from a country where they are unavailable. The result of the VPN block is that people can only watch videos available worldwide, and other videos, like localized, are hidden from the search results. Remember that Hastings never mentioned Iran as a banned country. So right when the whispers about Netflix's presence in Iranian digital media market started, the website got banned by the Islamic regime, which made it more complicated for Iranians to access Netflix because they had to use VPN now, and the VPN was being blocked like they started blocking VPNs at Netflix. However, there are still some surprising statistics. Although there is no official number here, it can be said that there have been more than 11 millions of active installation of the Netflix app on Cafe Bazaar, an Iranian Android marketplace, and 2 million installation on myket.ir, which is another game and Android marketplace. This makes Iranian about 5% of Netflix's total subscribers worldwide. It's mind-blowing. So here, let's see some statistics. In here, you can see the trend of searching for Netflix in Iran over the course of 12 months prior to spring 2022, when the report was published. And here you can see that broken down by provinces. Okay, so this is not Alborz. This is Turkmenistan, and this is Iraq. I drew 2 arrows because I wanted to point to these 2 provinces, but the arrows are disappeared somehow. And here you can see the titles, the most demanded titles. In Turkey, where Netflix operates and has offices, the subscribers number doesn't go over 8 million. Turkey's population is about 86 million. So Iran and Turkey have like the same population, we can say. So in Turkey, it's 8 million. And in Iran, we have like numbers going like over between 10 to 11 million. So this makes us hesitate a bit that like there are 11 actual active users, Netflix subscribers in Iran. But let's see how it is for an Iranian inside Iran to access this platform. SWIFT, or the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, unplugged Iranian banks in 2012 as part of sanctions over the regime's nuclear program. Consequently, individuals cannot make direct international monetary transactions, and this has resulted in the growth of market for services in the middle to purchase subscriptions. This way, the middle service provider buys a subscription, and then they can customize and sell it to 4 separate individuals, 4, which is like the maximum number of people who can use one account. The other way is to sell it to one individual. Based on Satra's report, that I will go through detail later, Netflix's subscription fee is less expensive than that of the domestic platform. For shared accounts, we're talking about the shared accounts. And the majority of subscriptions have purchased it through zarinpal.com. So in these tables, okay, what should I do? Here you can see, I took, like for the exchange rate, I took 2000, which is like 25,000, I think now, but I took it as an average, and it makes sense with the result, with the report. So this is for shared accounts. Okay, and this is for individual accounts. And here is for domestic VODs, Filimo and Namava, which are the 2 biggest Iranian domestic VODs. All right, so I mentioned briefly, but my source for all of this is, what did I do? My source for all of this is Satra's report, which makes us ask, what exactly is Satra? After the supreme leader blatantly criticized the loose and abandoned state of the Iranian cyberspace, loose and abandoned is the translation for sholovel, on different occasions, and by his decree in August 2015, the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting, that I will be referring to as IRIB, was designated as the state entity responsible for legislating and issuing permits for virtual audiovisual content. While his brief and pointed dictate was to be strictly obeyed, the lack of a structural and informed agenda for the online media scene brought confusion and complexity within the ruling establishment. When I first drafted the abstract for this article over 3 months ago, the situation in Iran was drastically different. Mahsa Amini was still alive, and the regime's malfunctioning system was limping, yet going. There was an ongoing quarrel over the rights of regulating Iran's audiovisual ecosystem, most notably between IRIB and the Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance. Based on the Iranian constitution, IRIB functions independently from the government, yet the direct designation and dismissal of its head by the supreme leader signals its importance for the regime. On the other hand, there is the Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance that has been traditionally in charge of regulating cinema and film production in Iran. With every escalation in the Iranian society, we can clearly see the rush to overregulate and push the regime's cyberspace so-called protection plan to replace the global internet network entirely with a national intranet. SATRA is one of the many products coming out of cyber regulation concerns. I will focus on this entity and the names which are involved to discuss the regime's increasing desire to subsume VODs under its control. I won't be going through the regime's cyberspace protection plan. It is a whole different topic for itself. But regarding the VODs, I think Minu Khani's conclusion in the news article published in Jam Jam Online can sum it up all, explain it all and how it was, how it ended. So I'm going to read a line quote. All governing institutions, including the government, the Islamic Council, the National Center for Virtual Space, regulatory institutions such as the Guardian Council and the General Inspection Organization, and other parts of judiciary system are unanimous in the necessity of regulating the audiovisual media by SATRA on behalf of the broadcasting organization, she means IRIB. SATRA seeks to improve the health and quality of inclusive audio and video media services in virtual space by fulfilling its mission, strengthening and improving the position of the audiovisual media industry of the Islamic Republic of Iran in a heavy global competition, and protecting media borders, and to reduce the vulnerability of the society against the cultural attacks of the foreigners, and to prevent monopoly and to ensure healthy competition. And finally, to lay the foundation to become a media model for a modern Islamic civilization. This was published in July 7th. Okay, so again, more closely, how and when SATRA was born. Lined with the 44th article of the Islamic regime's constitution and the Guardian Council's interpretation theory, nazariye tafsiri, of this article, Iranian Audiovisual Media Regulatory Authority, aka SATRA, was officially formed in September 2015, and the Office for Media Regulation Studies is its consulting arm. Based on their agenda, this institution, quote, this institution aims to promote media regulation discourse and virtual space among the experts and policymakers, and to familiarize them with the latest regulatory activities, as well as explaining the economic, social, and legal dimensions of this form of regulation. Okay, so what is the 44th article of the regime's constitution? According to this article, another line, quote, the economic system of the Islamic Republic of Iran is based on 3 sectors: public, cooperative, ta'awuni, and private. With regular and correct planning, The public sector, including all large industries, infrastructure industries, foreign trade, large mines, banking, insurance, power supply, dams and large water supply networks, radio and television, post and telegraph and telephone, aviation, shipping, roads and railways, and the like, which is public property and at the disposal of the government. I think they should be adding trash bins to that as well. The cooperative sector also includes production and distribution companies and cooperative institutions that are formed in cities and villages according to the Islamic rules. The private sector includes those parts of agriculture, animal husbandry, industry, trade, and services that are complementary to government and cooperative economic activities. Ownership in these three sectors is legally protected by the Islamic Republic as long as it is in accordance with the other principles of this chapter and does not go beyond the scope of Islamic laws and causes economic growth and development of the country and does not cause loss to the society. The details of the rules and territory and conditions of all three parts are determined by the law. Okay, so the emergence of some problems in the implementation of privatization forced the authorities of the Islamic Republic to change Article 44 of the Constitution in order to provide a new definition of the scope of the government's economic tenure. Therefore, the Expediency Discernment Council, through a resolution, found it expedient to hand over part of the strategic and infrastructure industries to the private sector. Ali Khamenei announced the general policies of Article 44 in June 2004, according to the first clause of Article 110 of the Constitution, which is about the supreme leader's duties and a scope of power. And that first clause of this article is about determining the general policies of the system, of the regime system, which can be changed by the supreme leader in accordance with, in collaboration with Majma Tashkhis. In July 2005, in July 2005, Sayyid Ali Khamenei announced Article 44, Clause C of the Constitution, and obligated the government to hand over 80% of the shares of the public sector to the private sector. What is referred to Article 44 today and its purpose is considered to be privatization is actually a new interpretation of the original draft, the original article. Okay, so this is about it, and we can later discuss what exactly, I cannot say what exactly, but we can discuss what private sector means here. But let's go back to Satra, and let's start with its president, Sayyid Muhammad Sadiq Imami, like this guy. I had arrows pointing, but they disappeared. So he is the current and third president of Satra. He is also a founding partner of GPTT, Governance and Policy Think Tank, Andishe Hukmrani Sharif. Let's learn about the GPTT a little bit, because all these entities' agendas are centered around one same axis: to actualize the regime's cyberspace protection plan as soon as possible. Okay, sorry. So in the description about us of this think tank website, it is written that the distinction of the governance of Sharif think tank has always been on a policy-oriented and not a political approach to issues. Siyasati wa na siyasi. And in this way, it has succeeded in working with effective institutions at the political level of the country, such as the Leadership Office, the Expediency Council, the Islamic Council, both commissions, research centers, parliaments, and honorable representatives, the government and government ministers and ministries and organizations, revolutionary institutions, and all the institutions under the supervision of the supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution should have close cooperation. But when I went to their projects tab, it didn't show me anything. I don't know if it is because I was accessing it from outside Iran, or if they haven't put anything online in regards to their projects. So Emamian provided Tasnim an exclusive note. And it is important to note that Tasnim is a so-called private news agency which belongs to the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, categorized as a terrorist organization by the US and recently went under severe sanctions imposed by Canada. It begins this, his note. It is a very long note. And I thought instead of to give you a gist of it by translating some parts of it, because I just want us to be familiar with the rhetoric, So he starts, in recent years, the global basket of media consumption has been constantly changing in favor of transnational media in such a way that the share of mostly American subscription-oriented services, SVODs, has reached more than 90% of all subscribers in most countries. In the meantime, the media regulatory bodies, as guardians of public interests, identity, and national culture, have sounded the alarm for I skipped this word, for the national media sovereignty by going beyond the traditional notions of global culture and borderless media. At the last global summit of regulation in early October this year, a major part of the discussions was devoted to how to protect the media borders of countries against this devastating invasion. Throughout the letter, his main stress is to produce localized content. So I don't know if I have more time, but I thought that I can stop here and go back to discuss the private sector more and just talk about the keywords so far. So if you agree, I can stop here, but if you like.
Please proceed.
Okay. So to proceed, I still would like to, go in more details about this note, which is very important, and everywhere that you want to learn about Satra and how the confusion between the ministry and this organization was sorted out, they all go back to this letter, to this note. He says that in our country, however, the presence of powerful national media aligned with domestic show platforms and of course affected by the lack of official presence of transnational show platforms, has provided a unique opportunity for the show business industry. Although the non-compliance with the laws of publishing publishing rights for foreign content had initially put the country's consumer market at the disposal of the mass of foreign content, which is to be available to the Iranian audience almost free of charge as soon as they are produced. But the pool of the domestic market, aligned with the influx of special funds into this, is something that has to be considered closely. In the last few years, the industry has moved the production cycle of Iranian drama content beyond the national media. Nevertheless, despite the existence of cultural content concerns, the country's media industry is still far from the desired balance in favor of local content production. I would like to remind you that in the document of the National Information Network, approved by the Supreme Council of Virtual Space, the media must reach the limit of 40% of the Iranian content within the document. A basket of policies such as determining the floor of the ground for native content and the requirements to invest in production, in addition to changing the market scope with the aim of limiting the supply and consumption of foreign content, the mechanisms of joint production and exchange of content between display platforms and national media are the things that are adopted as a green strategy in sharing the storage of Iranian platforms and national media with the aim to redistribute and circulate local content. They are necessary to be realized to keep the foundations of the country's media sovereignty. So this was the end. I get to the end of like the fourth question. I have some more things that I could share, but then that would be another discussion. That's about the domestic platforms. But if you don't mind, I'd say that I stop here, and maybe later on, when the second part of this is more formed, I can present it again.
Very good. Thank you very much, Masoumeh Hashemi.
My pleasure. I can stop the share, I think.
Okay.
And how is that? Sorry.
Well, please feel free to ask questions on this technical presentation. Thank you. It was very informative and gave me a clue of what is happening and the way the Islamic Republic tries to control the dissemination of digital contents.
So everyone, if you have comments, I don't guarantee that I can answer every question, but we can discuss about it. And also, I appreciate your comments, the parts that I should be focusing on more. I see Zain is raising his hand.
Yeah,
Yes, Zain, please.
Yeah, Masoumeh, thank you so much for that very informative talk. I also learned a lot of things I didn't know about. I want to hear what you think. I guess kind of two part. You said how 3 months ago when you first drafted the article, Mahsa was still alive and the situation was different. So how has Mahsa changed the landscape regarding digital control and authoritarianism, digital sovereignty in Iran? And do you think that some of these changes are permanent? Or do you think that we could see kind of a return? Or do you think that what we saw with Mahsa in the digital sphere is going to have effects moving forward?
Okay, so maybe I can start, but please, everyone, feel free to join, answering Zain's question. So what I think, yes, it was different 3 months ago, but this discussion, like regulation over regulating the cyberspace in Iran, is not a new topic. It's an old topic. There has been back and forth, a lot of back and forth between different institutions, how to make it happen. What are the barriers? But they have been at work very hard since Khamenei's decree in 2015. But like I said in the presentation, every escalation, every protest, every uprising, we see it like a pattern that they rush it even more, they push it even more. If they are doing it on a planned way, then they just rush everything. And we saw that, yes, they are cutting the international internet network, but there are still, some people saying they don't necessarily recognize or understand that the international network is cut down because they are replacing it by their national intranet. So they are making it more effective. And one reason for SATRA to exist is to bring the infrastructure that Iran needed from outside before. Because, like, for example, in November 2019, Aban 98, when they cut down the internet for over a week, like there was total shutdown, no news from Iran, there was like no mass killings in Iran. So it really hit them hard because when they did cut the internet, they also got helpless because the biggest part of the servers, the hosts, they were outside Iran. So it made themselves, like they put themselves into trouble as well. And then they became like smarter and smarter, and like we shouldn't be dependent on any foreign country to hold our servers or to hold, like to have our hosts there. We have to bring to import everything. So I guess, you know, Abrar One, for example, this telecommunication, this tech company, its name came a lot in the news recently. And that's one example of the companies that are working on infrastructures. They're like bringing, you know, or mimicking like the international models to make the Iranian version. And that all is for, you know, for that day that they want to shut down the internet, the international network entirely, so they won't be dependent for anything to the outside world. So in that sense, I feel, you know, I would like to call it a revolution, what followed like Mahsa's murder. I am hoping that they wouldn't get the time to finish this plan, like implant it entirely. But I believe that it was the last straw, you know. That's what are you doing with this cyberspace plan? Just like make it work. Why isn't it at work right now? So in that sense, I'm hoping that they don't get the time, but it's very likely that if they get the time, we'll see it more and more, and the internet network becomes more minimal in Iran.
Thank you, Mahsa. Thank you, Masoumeh. You noted in your presentation that Netflix did not even have Iran on its report, but then surprisingly, you indicated that there were 11 million subscribers. How does that happen? How can the Iranian sort of content seekers override this regulatory body in Iran?
Okay, so before 2016, when Netflix was not using VPN blocks, before that, Iranians could use, you know, just install the application on your gadget, and you could start streaming. Not every title, you know, because, for example, what we see on Canadian Netflix is different from like the US Netflix or European Netflix. But there are still some global content that are streamed like worldwide and accessible worldwide. And Iranians were using them. But when the government put a filter, like filtered the website in Iran, then Iranians needed VPN, but it was complicated because Netflix was not allowing, you know, VPN access to its platform anymore. So that's why the middle market grew. And in Iran, it's almost, you know, a normal thing that for everything that you have to reach out to outside, because an individual cannot do it. There are sanctions, a lot of other barriers. So there are middle like players there that do like who do that, you know, like solves this issue. And the most common way is that they buy the account, the subscription, and then they resell it to Iranians. Or like Iranians who are outside could share maybe like their account with their family or friends in Iran. But Dr. Tawakkoli, like the mind-blowing thing about Iranians is that no sort of filtering and proxy stops them. Nothing stops us. I mean, I lived in Iran for 29 years, and, you know, we find our ways. It doesn't mean that the Islamic regime has tolerance or is flexible. No, people are creative. And like the digital ecosystem makes it impossible for the regime, you know, to shut down everything and to also shut down this creativity. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, very, very good. What I'm also concerned about is that to see how international collaboration, particularly with the movement that is emerging in Iran, can override some of the restrictions that are imposed by the regime. Can you explain the technical of how it can, international participants can override the national sort of border and national control?
I wish I could, I had like more knowledge about it, but I'm not, my tech background, I'm very poor in tech, But I've been following the news, I've been, like talking or reading things. And my understanding is that, so for example, for Starlink to get to Iran, so the sanctions are lifted in that regard. And apparently there are like terminals are being sent, but the infrastructure that needs for Starlink to operate in Iran, it takes time. Mm-hmm. And, when we say sanctions, now it is a tricky word even, like to be pro-sanction or against sanctions, because so the Iranian regime has been, like camouflaging or like scapegoating like the sanctions for too many things. They blame like sanctions for everything. So for such a question, I honestly, like to be frank, I am puzzled, because I'm like, okay, so if I as an individual Iranian ask for more sanctions, more push for the regime to fall, so what's the expense here? Who is going? What part of the society is affected the most? So I prefer not to say anything about that. But technology-wise, I feel it's doable, because the Islamic regime is just like, their brain is way behind, and the way that they are trying to rush to catch up, I don't think that it can like efficiently work. And like the international players are always like 1-2 steps ahead of them, and that gives me hope. Yeah.
So to ask the question I want to really comprehend this well. Okay. So are you in a sense arguing that international digital sanctions enable the Islamic Republic's control system? Or not?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. But so when the US government started like lifting the sanctions, so the Iranians could use Starlink. I don't know if you saw, but the Iranian regime responded to that and took that as, intervention by a foreign government. So in that sense, yes, when there were sanctions, people were suffering because of it, but and the government, capitalized on it. The government for sure capitalized on it. Okay, so there are digital sanctions against Iran, and Iranian population cannot use this. And we use this, we capitalize on it. We try to, there is a gap that we caused it, the regime caused it, and the gap is there, and we're gonna fill that gap by making, like investing more in the infrastructures. So yes, the sanctions has for sure affected, like digital sanctions has affected the Iranian population, and the regime, I feel, is taking advantage of it. But, like to be more accurate about it, I'm a film studies person, Dr. Tawakkoli. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Other questions? Azadeh, do you have a question?
I see Leila, there's a raised hand.
Like Leila, all right. Leila, please.
Good evening from London. I was just adding some ideas about this last question. Regarding Starlink, as far as I know, even if there is a digital sanction or anything, sanction against Iran, it would be apparently required to have some hardware inside physically Iran. And they are thinking of just dropping those by drone. That's what I've heard. But how it works out, I'm not too sure. Secondly, I was just thinking that if Iranian authority have got hands in the profit of these digital sanctions, like satellite dishes for TVs, it could be banned, but like it could still be used. That's my contribution, I think. That's how they can get away with it. Like even the Apple company have banned their officially in their terms and conditions, nothing can be downloaded in Iran, but everybody almost using their Apple gadgets and still downloading whatever through whatever trick. All I'm saying is that either Iranian government, Islamic Republic, could have profit in it, so they can, although they ban it on surface, they could be still done through their mediators.
Great,
that
thank you
could
very
have
much,
been
Leda.
happen. Yeah, that's it.
Appreciate it.
That's okay.
Yes.
That was
The
my
point that you are
comment.
making is very valid. Also, like about the Starlink again. Yes, that is true that like the hardware needs to be smuggled to, like inside Iran or dropped by drones. But I also read like a thread of tweets by Dr. Naderi, and he didn't make it very. He wasn't very descriptive. He said that not everything is published on social media, but they are importing the terminals. But after that, even after that, I saw, I read something which was written by a tech personality in Iran. And he was explaining that even with the terminals, still, we don't have enough of it in the infrastructure. But yeah, like we said, the government can still use it. But yeah, let's hope that, they don't get the time.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question, Professor Tawakkoli.
Yes, Leda, please.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hashemi, for the very eyes-opening presentation. I just wanted to know that about the Netflix spread. You showed us the map that it shows Alborz and the other province in the north of Iran. I wanted to see that why the dissemination of the Netflix usage is particularly used on the north of Iran, not like all over Iran.
So there are two provinces that we see no traffic, and one of them is Alborz, and the other is Kokilui Boy Rahmat. But I'm not sure if that map, the display of that map, is accurate, because although Alborz doesn't show any traffic on the map, but in the list, it's the fourth top in the list, the province. So I'll be investigating that map more. But it can be too many things, it can be that Alborz still, people are using, it's considered as a part of Tehran still, I'm not sure about Kokilui Boy Rahmat. It could be, I don't know, some other like insufficiencies, but because the whole map, even Sistan Baluchistan is showing a traffic and Kokilui Boy Rahmat is not, that's an interesting question that I will be investigating for sure. But about Alborz, and because I saw Alborz white there and in the list, so I thought that might be the same thing about Kokilui Boy Rahmat. That's why I didn't, go further for this presentation. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
If that is okay.
Of course.
I'm not sure maybe if it's part of the topic, but I was interested because in your presentation you showed very well how the Iranian government is trying to, I'll just call it block the outside world to give give information. Do you also see the Iranian government block information from Iran to go outside as well, or is that completely different
An
topic.
Excellent question.
Yeah.
No, that is a very good question, because when I was talking about this like Sharif think tank, and I put that screenshot there that I couldn't see anything about their projects, and I wasn't sure if the content is not there or if the content is there but it's not accessible from outside Iran. I've seen on Satra's page, on Satra's website, there are some links to some reports that I could not access. And when I was, the error it was giving me was an IP error. So I could select there, but it's not accessible from outside Iran. And because like these days, it's not, first of all, I cannot communicate with my friends inside Iran very easily. And also when I call them, I'm not sure who is listening. So I haven't asked them like to download the reports and send them to me, but that is definitely a case. And it's not just about, Satra or this think tank. Yes, there is that policy that like the content which is accessible, like the local, mostly like Iranian governmental websites, their content which is the content accessible to Iranians inside is different from what we can access from outside.
Very good.
Okay.
Micah, thank you for that question. I have a follow-up. And in many of the searches that I do looking for Iranian content, even for the National Library, often I get a warning and then the content is not available. And I'm wondering whether this is because of international sanctions. Is it because of international sanctions and international concerns, or is it the Iranian government control?
Okay, so like there was a very common and popular website, weblog, to download free softwares for free, pirated softwares, like PC Online, for example. And PC Online, when I came to Canada, I couldn't access that. And that was a block from the website server inside Iran. So about like the National Library, for example, that's another like a very interesting question as well. But I think not all of it is because of the sanction. No, like for example, for Satra, why can I have access to some of the reports and not all of the reports, So if I couldn't access the website at all, or no PDF, no content, like to download any sort of content out of it, I might have think that. But it's selective. Some of them, which are like more propagandic, let's say, are accessible. But also don't forget that even when an organization publishes their policy making documents or like their internal correspondences, they sometimes they put something blank and they just write unpublishable or no rights to publish. So they have this attitude, they have this mentality that if you're outside Iran, you cannot ask for every content. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, please join me to thank Masoumeh Hashemi for her excellent presentation and really eye-opening, because this has been my own concern to understand how these technological borders and digital borders work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate your time listening to me talking for so long. That means a lot. And let us all hope and not just pray. There are things for everyone who has access to the internet. That's what I've been telling all of my friends, that, in what's happening in Iran, that's what I love about it. It's like every individual can do something, like to push it more. So please just be productive in the way that how you can work, or either it is like translation, or I don't know, making interviews or giving talks. But please let's be out like the maximum we've been active. I've never been this hopeful in my entire life in regards to the regime. So yeah, let's be productive and active as much as we can, everyone. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think the movement in Iran has been inspiring for a lot of Iranians outside of the country and has turned our depression into moments of hope, and we hope this continues.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Thank
Have
you.
a lovely Friday and weekend, everyone.
Likewise.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.